Welcome back to the Tipsy Tailgate. This is episode number 12. We've taken a little bit of time off, I think maybe 3 weeks, but we're back. We're excited to bring you guys another episode. A lot of sports news and stuff going on. We did a lot of build up for the NFL draft, but we never reacted to it. So we'll be reacting to the NFL draft. We'll give up some NBA playoff predictions. The MLB is in full swing now. Just last night, Corey Kluber pitched a 6 no-hitter in the MLB for the season. So we'll touch on that, and we'll touch on some MLB, and then at the end, we'll get a little bit of an NHL recap. So let's start off. Let's hit the NHL. Or sorry, let's hit the NFL. Let's react to the draft. We each picked our favorite and our least favorite team from their draft picks. So let's get into that. Do one of you guys want to start?
I can start it. So for my least favorite, I went with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I went with the Bengals purely for the fact that they went with Jamar Chase over Penny Sewell. And I know that they talked to Joe Burrow, and he said that he would rather be reunited with Chase than go with Sewell. But I think that was a mistake, and I think that the organization as a whole should have stepped up and said, you know what, like, we understand that you want to be reunited with Jamar, but this is for the better of your career. You have to stay healthy. He just sustained a gruesome injury, and I don't see how Chase helps that at all. I think Sewell would have been a perfect fit for that team and what they're trying to build. But for my favorite, I went with the Cleveland Browns, and I think that they're having a fantastic offseason as a whole. They're addressing all of their key issues. I love their first round pick and their second round pick with Greg Newsome and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Sorry. I thought they were two great picks, addressed two huge needs for the Browns. And I think that these are two guys who can step in and be contributors right away. So I think that these two picks are, I think that from these two picks, they're just pushing themselves further into contention. I think they have a real shot. I'd say they're my third or fourth favorite team in the AFC right now, but I went with the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I agree. The Browns have done a lot this offseason, and they already looked really good last year, especially down the stretch. The moves they made only made the weaknesses into kind of strengths at this point.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
very
and
exciting to see what
they
they're doing.
drafted for need too, and then those need picks ended up falling into their lap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it fell perfectly into them. Jake, do you want to take this?
Yeah, so for my least favorite, I had the Texans. This is just because, in all honesty, they just didn't have any capital going into the draft. They had nothing to work with here. And then you look at their draft, and the one pick that I think was the Brevin Jordan pick. Late round guy, tight end. He was one of those guys before where you looked at him and he was maybe top 5 tight end in the country. Sort of had or did have an off year this year, which is why he slept. But I think in the right system he could do something. The problem is that I don't think the Texans have a system yet. You look at their first pick and it's Davis Mills, the quarterback out of Stanford, who I think does have upside. But then again, you just hired a 65-year-old coach. I don't think he wants to spend 20 years working with a quarterback and develop him into something. So I sort of see that as a bust. Plus, he's still sitting behind Deshaun Watson right now. Nobody knows what's going to happen with him. So that's why I think really I don't think the Texans got anybody that's going to heavily impact them. A guy that's going to fill a starter's role and improve on a team that's, in all honesty, in shambles right now. And then for my the team I think that had a great draft was the Chargers. I think the Chargers, Herbert obviously wanted Penei Sewell reunite with his Oregon teammate. However, they got the second best tackle in the draft, and he fell right into his lap. Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern. And then you look at the second round, you lose Casey Hayward this offseason, and you replace him with Asante Samuel Jr., who was a top 3 or 4 corner in the draft this year. So I think he's a guy that's going to come in and fill Casey Hayward's spot and do great things. You look at down the road in their draft, they drafted a receiver, a tight end. They needed a tight end, somebody to replace Hunter Henry. And then, you went linebackers, tackles, and a backup running back, all guys that can fill in and make some sort of impact, whether it's, at their position or in special teams. So I think they drafted very well, on top of them already having a great roster.
I agree with that. For me, I went with the team that's not really, I don't think they're being talked about as much. The Minnesota Vikings. They had 11 total picks, and they grabbed Christian Darrisaw at pick number 23, which I thought was a steal. The Raiders, who I'll get to in a little bit, they took Alex Leatherwood, I think pick 17, which I mean, I'm just a much bigger of a Darrisaw fan than I am
Sure.
Leatherwood, and to get
As
him
for most, yeah.
yeah, he was pretty much a consensus 3 offensive tackle in the draft. So getting him at 23 was a great pick. Then I think the round 3, I think they had the best third round in out of all the teams. They got Kellen Mond, who I think is actually a serviceable quarterback. When I see him, I see a guy that if Kirk stinks it up a little bit this year, I see him going in there and not playing bad. I think he would do a decent job, especially with the weapons that the Vikings have. Then they also grabbed Chaz Surratt, a linebacker from North Carolina. I heard very good things coming in about him. Then they go and they grab Wyatt Davis, guard from Ohio State. He's a beast. I love that pick. I can't believe he dropped that far. And then Patrick Jones, a second from Pittsburgh, pass rusher. He's very talented, very skilled. I think there must be a connection with the Vikings and the Pittsburgh Panthers, because they went and they grabbed in the round 6 Jalen Twyman, DT, who was a beast in college, but a lot of his game probably won't translate to the NFL, so that caused him to drop far. But he might hit, and their third round alone, I think, puts them as a really, really impressive draft. For my disappointment, like I said, I'm going with the Raiders. I don't really love I think Leatherwood's going to be a good tackle in the league, but I think Darrisaw is much better. And the fact that they drafted him, I think 6 picks before, I don't really understand that. I feel like it's another one of those things where John Gruden and Mayock want to kind of surprise the world and be the ones
Yeah.
that are right. But I think they're just doing too much. I did like their second pick, Trevon Moehrig, the safety out of TCU. He was one of my favorite. I think he was my favorite safety going in. And then Malcolm Conce or something like that, edge out of Buffalo. That I think that has potential of being a good pick. But other than that, I mean, I don't love the draft. They got a safety. They got 2 safeties actually, a corner, and then Jimmy Morrissey, center out of Pittsburgh. But I think just Leatherwood, Daniel Jeremiah had him the 62nd ranked prospect, and they took him at 17. Anytime you kind of make a jump that big, you're either hitting it or you're looking like an idiot. So I don't really love that draft.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said that, Aiden, about Gruden and Mayock, because I was saying this, I think, a few weeks ago about Shanahan, about how he always tries to be the smartest guy in the room. And I
Yep.
think Gruden's also another one of those guys. And I think you're completely right. I Mayock and Gruden actually are both that kind of guy, but that was clearly a pick where they were trying to prove that they were the smartest guy in the room.
But then again, if it hits, then they are the smartest guys in the room, and they look like geniuses.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, going into Gruden getting signed and then them bringing over Mayock, I thought that the Raiders are gonna hit in maybe 2-3 years from then. I thought they were gonna be a team that's gonna explode.
Yep.
I thought that was because Mayock, who knows more about the draft than Mayock?
Mhm.
Right.
Gruden just trusts him as much as he can. So I thought that they were gonna go in. And it's kind of like the thing where you see a guy like Chip Kelly, I believe, or any guy that really comes from the college game and then comes into the NFL, their first 2-3 years, they'll hit on every prospect because they've seen the guys play, they had firsthand experience. But then when you're a couple years out, when you're the Belichick's now and you're not interested into that game as much, you don't know the guys, and I think that it might be one of those things with Mayock, or he's just overthinking them, like we said. So let's get into some NBA playoff predictions. The play-in games are going on. I believe the Grizzlies beat the Spurs last night. The Lakers just beat the Warriors, and the Celtics beat the Wizards, and the Pacers beat the Hornets. So, what are some predictions we have here? I can go first. Um, Overall, I think that the biggest loser of these playoffs are the Nuggets. And that's because if Jamal was healthy and didn't tear his ACL, we would be winning the championship, and that's my opinion. I think with a healthy Jamal, I think we walk our way through the West, especially with injured LeBron, a Clippers team that can't really get it together, and then just going into the East, whether it's the 76ers, the Bucks, or the Nets. I just think the chemistry with us would be too strong. Losing Jamal hurts so much. So I'd say the Nuggets just it hurts. It hurts to watch this year slip through our fingers. Possibly, I'm not saying we're out of it yet, but if I had to put a West and an East prediction, I think it's the safest bet to put the Lakers, just because even though LeBron's ankle and now his other ankle, his eye, whatever it is, he's been getting banged up. But you're gonna have to go with AD, who showed that he was clutch as ever last year in the bubble, and then LeBron, especially with Drummond now and Schroeder and the guys. I think the Lakers can make it and show out of the West, even though I wouldn't be surprised if the Nuggets still put out a show and made it. So I'm either going Nuggets or Lakers for the West. And then from the East, I think, I'm more and more I want to take the 76ers, but I think I'm just gonna go the Nets. I like what the Nets obviously did with bringing in Harden after already having Kyrie and KD, but I just think at this point they don't really have the chemistry, but the star power is just going to be enough. If they need 40 from Harden and 30 from KD, they can do it and carry them and will their way into the finals. But if I had to put a prediction down, I mean, I guess I'm going with the Nets. It's one of the most interesting NBA playoffs, I think, for years, at least in my opinion. So I'd be interested to see what you guys think.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the Nets is the safe pick to go with in the East. I mean, but also, I think I've never wanted to bet on the Bucks more to win the East than this year, just because I feel like Giannis is just so fed up with all of this. Oh, he plays great in the regular season, the Bucks amazing team, and then they hit the playoffs and they just get outmanned. And I think, acquiring Drew Holiday this year, who is a considerable, defensive player of the year type of guy, who can step up on anybody and defend anybody like that. I think that's huge for them. I think that was a great addition. And when they need, to be lined up against the Nets, he can, limit one of them. He's not going to stop them because nobody can really stop them, but he can add some pressure off of Giannis. And then I think from the West, I think it's ultimately going to come down to that Lakers Suns series. I would really bet on, the Suns were able to beat them coming out of there, just because they're going to be trial and battle tested all throughout that series. It's one of the hardest teams to beat, especially in the playoffs, especially with a guy like LeBron. And they get out of there, I think they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, Jake, I agree with you. When it comes to the West, I think that the Lakers will make it to the finals. Obviously, it depends on LeBron's health and other factors, AD's health for that fact. But I do also agree with you that if the Suns were to get by the Lakers, I think they could make a real shot at it. When it comes to the East, I'm actually taking Philly. I think that they have the best chemistry. I think they fit the most together. They have so many key contributors. And I to be honest, when you look at the Nets, it's, I think you can kind of push them around, play physical with them and get them out of their rhythm. And I think Philly's the team that can do that.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be an interesting playoffs. I think this is kind of the most in the dark we've been with an obvious pick, because usually you'll go with LeBron's team, and this year you're like, all right, but now he's fighting injuries and all that. And then on the other side, it's kind of three teams that all could make a run or could be a disappointment and have in the past. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll monitor that and we'll talk more about that next week. But let's get into the MLB. So um, in the 2021 season already, there have been 6 no-hitters: Joe Musgrove, Carlos Rodon, John Means, Wade Miley, Spencer Turnbull, and Corey Kluber just last night. And that's not including Madison Bumgarner, who pitched a 7-inning no-hitter.
Which should count.
Which, yes, in my opinion, I think it should count, just because it's the MLB's effort to make it, okay, 7-inning game. Let's do that. Let's implement that into the rules. Okay, well, the guy took what the rules give and he did everything it takes to be in the record books. I mean, there's nothing more you could ask. I think
If
it should.
if the game counts, why shouldn't the no hitter count? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't really understand the logic behind that, or at least count it as a no hitter and put a little asterisk in the record book, whatever. You could just say 7 inning. I don't know, but so it very interesting. This is the most. I think we're on pace to crush the record of no hitters already. Even last night, I think there was, or maybe 2 nights ago, there was another guy who had a no hitter pretty deep into the game. But it's just a season where pitchers are dominating, and you see it with a couple teams. I think it's either the Mariners or the Rangers. I think it's the Mariners. They have an average under 190 overall with their lineup. And then talking about the Mariners have been no hit twice out of the six, and the Rangers have been no hit twice out of the six. So we're seeing teams that are worse than we've ever seen before, getting no hit multiple times in a couple months of baseball. And it's kind of something that we've never seen before. Pitchers are dominating, and hitters are kind of standing back a little bit, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, you guys have any thoughts on it?
Well, I don't really think that it's a coincidence that we're seeing all these no hitters. There's these stupid launch angles, this new way of hitting. I think it's dumb. Teams they value home runs more than ever now. They don't care if they strike out as long as they have a chance for a home run. And I personally, I don't think that's good for baseball. I I miss the days of when just beautiful gappers leading to RBIs. That's what I love about baseball. Just the gritty, grimy hits that change a game, change a series. And I saw Kershaw saying today that he thinks it's due to the deadened balls, the new balls that they're using, but I disagree. I think it comes from the new way of hitting, and I'm not a fan of it, to be honest.
I actually think. Sorry, Jake. I'll give you a second one right after this. I actually think it's a combination of both because we always heard for the past couple of years these new balls they fly whatever every year, home run record, on pace for a home run record. And then we're kind of seeing this year, I think everyone's like, all right, well, now with the balls, with everything else, if I could just hit 40 homers, 30 homers, I can get myself a huge contract.
Mhm.
So they're using the analytics, they're going into the launch angles and all that, and it's messing up their swings. They don't really care about striking out, they don't care about their average. If they could hit 240 like Chris Bryant of the Athletics usually does, but hits 35 bombs, they think they're going to get paid. So I think it has to do with that, and also the dead end balls. It's not leading to as many home runs. So the guys that spent 2-3 years watching everyone hit these homers, then they're like, all right, well, why aren't mine coming off the bat? They're slumping. But yeah, Jake, you can go ahead.
Yeah, and speaking of another Chris Bryant too, I've watched 2 Cup games this year, and one of the biggest things whenever Chris Bryant comes up is, oh, adapting to all this launch angle stuff and bat speed stuff. He's had to reteach himself how to hit a high fastball, and even watching some of the games as of recent, it seems like guys can't hit high pitches anymore due to the fact that they just can't get a good angle on them. And with the balls being dead, and they're not gonna, if you get a high fastball pitch to you and you can't get a good launch angle, you're not hitting the ball over the fence. So I think I would say it's more the balls just because, when you juice those balls a little bit, it makes the game more exciting. Guys are going to hit more home runs, but it does force guys to become different hitters. And I think guys that can, hit for doubles and hit, a solid 300, those are going to be the guys, over the next generation that are going to really stick out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Another thing just to add to the sorry, Aiden, I saw a stat today that the batting average in both leagues are down the most in decades. I think it was. I believe that the AL's at like 232, and then the NL's at like 234. So the average is like 233. That's just awful. Like that's not a good product for fans to watch.
No.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of a shift in baseball, and we're seeing the I guess the downside for many people that view offense and home runs as the way to get baseball popular again. It's kind of the opposite. Now it's a lot of shutouts, a lot of I think if I'm right, I think the Yankees just played another game today, and I think they shut them out again. Am I right on that? The day after the no-hitter. But yeah, it's pretty crazy so far in the year. So let's get into some of the surprises, some of our biggest disappointments and predictions that we kind of didn't see coming that are now maybe 40 games into the year showing up. So I'm going to go first. I'm going to go with the San Francisco Giants. They just won today, 19-4, beat the Reds, and they're holding a record of an MLB best 28-16. They're playing out of their minds, and it's pretty crazy because this is a team that's in the division of the Padres and the Dodgers, and those are the teams that are probably the top two favorites for most people, at least. But their manager Gabe Kabler, he's been great. They kind of built this chemistry, and between their veterans and the youth, it's kind of mended together, and it's worked out very well so far. They got Buster Posey's had a resurgence at the plate. Finally, he's playing good. Mike Yastrzemski coming off a good year. He's playing good again. They got veterans like Longoria, Cueto, Crawford. It's a team, and they got Mauricio Dubon, their prospect. He's been playing amazing for them. And this is a team that's, I personally, I don't think it's a playoff team just because you're going to get the winner is probably going to be the Dodgers of that division, but the wild card is probably going to be the other one, whichever one that misses out, Padres or the Dodgers. So it'll be tough to see, but the Giants are hot right now, and that's a big surprise to me. Disappointments, though, I'm going with the Angels. It's crazy because everywhere in the news, if you're looking at sports and you're looking at baseball news, you're going to see Shohei Ohtani doing stuff that's never been done, doing stuff that hasn't been done in 100 years since Babe Ruth, all this stuff. You'll see all of it, but it doesn't translate to the record. They're 19-24 right now. Mike Trout just got hurt, I think 6 to 8 weeks. That hurts, obviously. He's the best player in baseball. I think he was hitting above 400 for most of the year already. But it's just a team that they can't put it together. And if it's the pitching, the bullpen, or if it's just the squad, I mean, you have Anthony Rendon, you have Shohei Ohtani, and you have Mike Trout, and then you have other guys that also could put it together. You have Walsh, you got Justin Upton, Dylan Bunn. I mean, you have some good guys that should really translate into wins, and it just hasn't. And it's something that, it makes a lot of baseball fans, true baseball fans, it makes us hurt because we see Trout wasting his career away, and then you see them get all this help, Shohei and Rendon, but it's still not translating to anything yet. And you just keep thinking, is Trout going to be another, I don't know, Ken Griffey, another guy that's just phenomenal, but just can't get to the postseason, can't do anything in the playoffs. And so we'll stay tuned on that.
Yeah.
No, Ben, you can go.
Just to add on what you were saying a little bit, Aiden, it's astonishing to me that they can't build a real team around Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. Like, I don't understand that. That's unbelievable to me, but you can go, Jake.
Yeah. So my two teams, just because we were talking about it in the division, my two teams, my biggest disappointment, and they've, gotten on track as of recent, but the Dodgers, to me, I mean, the fact that they went on a span where they just lost, like, what was it, like 8 or 9 in a row?
Yep.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy to me. You look at that roster, and even with, guys getting hurt and guys missing games, you still have enough people on that bench to fill in, for your superstars. And, when you got Mookie Betts, Cody Bellinger, and then that, your pitching staff is arguably the best in the league, you should never go on a span where you lose, more than 5 games. And then segueing into that, my biggest surprise really was the Padres. They've always had, or even last year, they had that roster that was good, that could have gotten them into the playoffs, but they just, they weren't there yet. And I feel like this year, especially after acquiring Blake Snell, they've really made that jump. And I think their pitching staff consistently this year has done what the Dodgers pitching staff had hoped to do. And I was looking at it, and I'm going to try and pull it up again. So the Padres in their last 10 are 9-1. That incredible. And the Dodgers bouncing back, they're also 8-2. However, they dug themselves into a little bit of a hole. So they're third in the NL West right now, whereas the Padres are, only a few games behind the Giants. I think, they're only a game back behind the Giants, who are red hot right now.
Yeah. So my biggest surprise in a good way was my team, the Boston Red Sox. They've been playing unbelievably offensively. Their bullpen is god awful. It's so bad. If anything's going to hold them back this year, it's going to be their pitching. But you have guys like JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, who I feel is one of the most underrated players in baseball. I think he's an absolute beast. They're playing great right now, 26-18, leading the best or second best division in baseball. They're up 5-3 right now on the Jays. But for my bad surprise, I went with the Minnesota Twins, a team that has been extremely competitive and extremely good the last few years. 14-28 this year. That's just god awful. They have great players like Buxton, Donaldson, Maeda, Happ, Nelson Cruz, just really good players. And it's just surprising that they're as below 500 as they are.
Yeah, the Twins are a team that I watched a lot last year during quarantine, and I love the squad. I mean, not even just Sano, but they've got Kepler, who's got tremendous power, Luis Araz, one of the best contact hitters in the league. Nelson Cruz is like one of my favorite players of all time, just a powerhouse. Mitch Garver, probably the second most power hitting catcher out there. They've got a really nice squad, and it's interesting. They got Barrios too. It's interesting that they can't really put together this year following last year. Now let's get into NHL a little bit. I'm not the most educated on the NHL. I am a Caps fan, and I do know I think we're down 1-2, right?
Yeah.
To you guys.
Yeah.
Ben's a huge Bruins fan, so if you want to take this over.
Yeah. So it's been a great playoff so far. So many interesting first round series. Probably the best in my opinion, like unobjectively, the best series has been Boston versus Washington. Every single game has gone to overtime. Those teams are so physical. They play each other tight every single time. Another great series, Pittsburgh versus New York. If you're not a hockey fan, those are the two series that I would suggest watching. These are the two kind of series that will make you a fan of hockey, make you a fan of the game. But just four of my favorites, I have to give four because it's so wide open. I got to go with Boston, Tampa, Colorado, or Vegas. So those are my favorites right now. But we have to see how it plays out. It's off to a great start. Very entertaining stuff.
And really quickly before we end, let's do some rapid fire. NBA MVP, who do you guys got? I got Jokic.
I got Jokic.
I got Curry.
Oh boy, I was hoping that I didn't hear that. Do you want to talk about it a little bit or?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we've always heard that like he's had help, everybody else, he's had, KD, Clay, Draymond around him his entire career. This year he's on his own and he's really, just improved on how good of a scorer he was and how good of a shooter he was. And he was the greatest of all time. I'd put him, a top 5 scorer of all time. Plus he had almost 6 assists and 6 rebounds. I mean, I think he's had the best season that he's ever had over his unanimous MVP season.
I feel like you can't give it to him because, well, one, they're an 8 seed in the West. I understand that his team is just horrible, but Jokic is putting up unprecedented numbers at the 5, just nearly averaging a triple double, lost his partner in crime, Jamal, and the Nuggets, at least regular season, didn't miss a beat. They kept winning and winning and winning. So I got to go with Jokic.
I also think Jokic, obviously I'm a Nuggets fan, but I think he's maybe the most gifted passer in the league. And especially for a big man, you see some of the passes he makes, and those are passes that you usually see a guy like LeBron or like CP3. Like these are phenomenal passes.
He makes like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson level passes.
He does. And it'll come down to how he plays in this series, or in the playoffs this year. But I think if he shows he's dominant in the playoffs and maybe brings the Nuggets to the finals, I think we'll start being able to slowly talk about, Jokic, like he's kind of changing the game a little bit. We've never seen a big man like this, passing the ball like this, like we've seen some flashes from guys like Embiid who try to shoot a little bit or Anthony Davis if he tries to shoot a little, but like we have never seen Jokic doing this, and the fact that he's still young is scary for the rest of the NBA. We'll talk a little bit next week about the MLB MVP rankings. We're a little soon on that, so we'll touch on that next week. And one last note I wanted to get off: the Cardinals minor league team keep them in your prayers because the Mets, everyone on their team's hurt. And last night or 2 nights ago, they had Syndergaard pitching against them, their Class A team, and I think tonight they have DeGrom pitching against them. So keep them in your prayers. That's all for this episode. We'll get back to you.
Also, we got like ESPN alert during this. Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury agreed to another fight.
I think September, right? Something like
Yeah.
that. Good. All right. Well,
He's gonna win again.
yeah, I'd put money on Fury right now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all for episode 12. We'll see you next episode.